Andrew, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute after the show today.
Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really happy to be chatting to you. Looking forward to it.
Me too. So let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic was changing the world, did so much to shape the way that we live today. How did you make it through that era, and how has it changed the way that you work and live today?
I interestingly, January 2020, my wife and I we took on the lease of a building, a brand new building where we just designed. We decided to transfer all of our businesses into one building because I've been hiring places and working in London High Street and offices are here, and she'd been doing these things. We signed the lease on the space, put a little money into it. 2 months later, it's like the world is shut down. It's like, oh, we've just signed away this contract. So we had to, March 3 months later, it was like, oh, that's it. We had a nice place to hang out during lockdown, this whole building to ourselves. But it meant we had to pivot pretty quickly. And fortunately, I would have been doing a lot of online work before. So previously, I'd done online training on my academy, I'd done online client sessions. So I was quite used to that. And suddenly, whereas before I've been trolled by so many people saying, you can't teach people online, you can't talk online, you can't do that. Suddenly, it's like the world caught up. So for me, in that part of it, it was a positive experience. It's like finally, what I've been saying all these years, others are catching up now. So I had to pivot pretty quickly and expand because a lot of others were doing it. But it was quite a transformational time for me. And I actually was in a position where it was very lucky for me to be able to spend time at home with my children. And we just spent a lot of time making things and building stuff. They were, in their teenage years at the time. So I know a lot of people had a really, really tough time, but for me, it was quite I can look back on it with some pretty good memories, actually. And I know a lot of people can't do that, but for me, I was able to do that. So it was yeah, mixed bag of emotions there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I would figure therapeutically for people, it was a real crossroads. It was a real fork in the road to figure things out in their lives. Have you felt like this has maintained a pretty magnanimous impact on humanity?
I used to think so. Nowadays I don't know. I'm not so aware of it now. I think for a few years afterwards, a lot of people were in the aftershock of it. But I don't see it myself, people referring back to that anymore. From myself, things seem to have moved on pretty quickly. But maybe you see it differently. Is there something in particular you're thinking there that makes you say that? Because I'm not personally aware of that nowadays, I don't think.
I don't think it's brought up overtly, but I think it still sticks in the background. I think it was a real moment for a lot of people to put that mirror up in front of their lives and say, you know what, if we're looking at something that's so biologically potentially detrimental and we could be gone this quick, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? Maybe not the young people, the kids, but for us adults that have had dreams and incubated all these desires of whether it's travel or whatever. Like, I think it was a moment. And whether we talk about it now or not, I think it kind of I often feel like it's like the novel where there was the rapture and all the rest of us were left behind. And I feel like we're all down here trying to think, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? And especially in America, because it's turned into such a clown show in Washington and there's so much tumult and turmoil. I think there's more of a microscope. I mean, I think a lot of us thought in America, all right, we survived a pandemic, we can exhale. And then now we got this thing that's going on right now. So to answer your question, I think it's more of something that's more subconscious now than it is consciously being talked about.
Okay, yeah, I never thought of it that way. That's interesting. I think the world leader thing is not, the US is not alone in that, by the way. We're all going through something like that where the leadership is not really reflecting what is going on in people's hearts. And I think that's part of the consciousness shift that is going to happen in the next years and decades is that these old style leaders won't be able to function anymore because eventually there'll be enough of a buildup of people who are much more consciously focused and heart focused and love focused and more person focused that eventually there just has to be enough momentum to say those leaders just can't survive. And it may take a while. It's like old scientists, how do you change a scientific theory? Well, you have to wait for everyone to die off, and then the new ones can finally, the younger scientists can finally say, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And it may take that, but yeah, I hear what you say about the pandemic being quite a shift in a lot of people because a lot of people were suddenly alone with themselves, alone with their thoughts, and it made people they couldn't escape anymore. They had to face up to things. So I know a lot of people went through that side of it. Yeah, absolutely.
So, along with America and other parts of the world that are going through these levels of authoritarian and governmental things, leadership that's not working. I was talking to a correspondent that worked for 60 Minutes for a long time. I'm thinking a lot about kind of what is happening with the dismantling of the journalism world in America. And they
Mm.
were talking about how all of the dictators throughout history learned that having an open and free press was much more beneficial to them than not. Even if it went contrary to them, they all, one way or another, got on that karmic wheel and figured it out. So I think what you're saying is, yeah, all of this humanity shift is going to get to a point where there's going to be a template of what we want and what we never want to see again.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that that'll happen. It's a huge shift in the evolution of human consciousness, if we take it to that level. But something has to evolve, and usually when things evolve in that way, things have to fall apart first of all. Something has to break before something new can come. So I know a lot of people are worried about disruption of AI and disruption of politics and disruption of the in nature, but that sometimes has to fall apart for a new way to come forward. So whichever one you focus on, if you focus on the negative, you're going to see the fear. If you can focus on, okay, what's going to come out of this, then you're putting a more positive outlook into the your personal, your local, and the global, um, global evolution of human
I
beings.
Yeah, for sure. I listened to a book before this last election, being hopeful that it wasn't going to turn out the way it did. And it was this juxtaposition of George Orwell and Winston Churchill. And it was
Mm,
so interesting how their worlds really did, like a lot of the things that they talked about have been manifested and have actually turned out the way, like they saw into a crystal
mm,
ball that we had no idea about. But their
mm.
level of intellect and leadership was so refreshing. And I was just hoping that we would have learned from history in this country to not do what we did in that election of 2024.
Yeah, I think we all want to learn from history, but it seems to take a lot. It seems to take a while, doesn't it? To have to
Yeah,
learn a few. I think it's quite personal. We all, we don't just make a mistake once and learn from it. We often, it takes us a while. You know that poem by Portia Nelson? It's called Life in Five Chapters. I don't know if I can remember it properly, but it's chapter one. We walk down the street. There's a hole. We don't see it, and we just fall in it. That's chapter one. Chapter two. We walk down the street. We see the hole. We still fall in it, and we get out and come another day. Chapter three, we walk down the same street, we see the same blooming hole, we try to go around it, we still fall in it. Chapter four, we walk down the street, we see the hole, we get around it. And chapter five, we choose a different street. And that's, we're all going through that, personally, globally. So it takes a while to learn from our mistakes. But as long as we keep learning and we're trying to choose a different street, then we'll get there eventually.
absolutely. So let's get into the good work you're doing. I'm going to put you in front of 13-year-olds at career day. You're in a school, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you synthesize your day job to make sense to their brains?
I help people change how they think, change how they feel, change how they behave if it's causing them a problem. And sometimes that might be because they've been through difficult life experiences and they've not been able to resolve it. And sometimes it just may be because that's the way life has been for them. But when somebody comes to me and says, I'm struggling in a certain area of my life, I help them take a deep look inside to see what's really causing it and help them let go of that cause so that they can begin to think better and feel better and do more constructive things in their life. And that's what I do for a living. And I teach others how to do that too.
So, what did you want to be when you were a kid? When you were 12 or 13, what was your dream gig?
Oh, punk rock star.
Okay.
I had a, no, I was, most of my life I was into musician, and I was playing in bands from when I was younger. From about my 15-year-old, 16-year-old me was a heavy metal fan with denim jackets and long hair into all the Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden when there were still small bands. And then I progressed into, I had spiky blonde hair and I played in punky rock bands around London. That was my gig until it all fall apart. I was working as a consultant engineer by day. I was working as a musician by night, burning the candle both ends and in the middle. And then what happened was my band's tour got cancelled, my contract got cancelled, and a few years earlier, my both my parents had died of quite quickly of illness. Mother of a brain tumor, father of a heart attack. I'd had to also bury two of my grandparents. This is like I think I was about 27 years old at this point, and suddenly it's like I've lost my family, I've lost my job, I lost my passion. Everything had gone. That's what it felt like. And I remember this idea about that hypnosis thing. And this voice said, find out about hypnosis because I'd had a fascination with it some years earlier. And that's suddenly how I got into the world of therapy was via the hypnosis, the hypnotherapy route. It wasn't a big career plan. It was just a massive, like, everything just fell apart within a few years and a pivotal moment. So yeah, I went from being the punk rock star trying to do everything I could to get that career going to actually maybe maybe this could be more interesting. And actually, I think a final turning point was I was in a gig in Glasgow in Scotland, and as we walked off stage, someone shouted out, "F an old man," and I thought, "Oh, that's a message. Maybe I'm too old for this now." So you can always trust a Scotsman to tell you the truth. So I came home and thought, I'm done with that, and I switched over to the more therapy side of it. So.
But it almost seemed like that was survival for you. You know, getting to that survival point allowed you to open up this whole other portal to reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I went from literally sitting on the floor of this grotty little flat above a kebab shop in North London, thinking, what am I going to do? And suddenly there was this hope, and it allowed me to take steps forward. And I suddenly realized there was more in this subject and this topic than I realized. And I became fascinated with it, and that began my journey of self-exploration as I understood myself. And yeah, it's saved my life. I think I was on a self-destruct mission. I would have probably ended up in California in the back door of a club, dead, probably, because I was also quite self-destructive because of other things going on in my life when I was younger. I think that the burning things out and uh, probably would have ended in a pretty grim ending if I hadn't saved myself. And so that thing stopped me going too far and literally, yeah, saved my life and gave me a new route to take. I chose a different street. Or it was, I didn't choose it. I was dragged down the different street, should we say. So,
For sure. Well, and
yeah.
27 is the rock age. I mean, that was the age that Morrison and Janis Joplin and Kurt Cobain, that's the age that everybody died, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I never thought that, but yeah, that's the age, isn't it? Where
yeah.
you push yourself so far, you haven't quite got that maturity to realize what you're doing. You're just pushing it, and yeah. So I think it saved me definitely. Yeah.
So, who was your hero? Who was an inspirational force that allowed you to find that strength to pivot and to get to a different place in life? Did you have that figure?
I don't think I did back then. No, I've seen plenty of people since, but it was just something in me. I just had to crawl out of that that hole. There was no person I was thinking I want to be like them because I all my life I'd wanted to be like um, David Gilmour from Pink Floyd or punk rock stars, whatever. They were my heroes, but they weren't doing that, and they all seem to be quite happy and successful, the ones who are still alive. So no, there was no one I latched onto. It was just a survival instinct. I think I got quite a good survival instinct. Like many of us, most people go through difficult times, and anybody who's still here, you've got that survival instinct in one way or other to keep going, to push through. So, I say to a lot of clients when they tell me their story, I think, in a different world, there'd be a medal here. Have a medal just for making it this far. Well done.
Yeah.
There should be awards for that, really.
Yeah, there should be.
So yeah, I think everybody's got that in them somewhere. Just sometimes you have to reach really, really hard
Yeah.
to find it. So,
Certainly. So on along the lines of music, what was the first concert that you saw that blew you away? What made you think I'm going to be up there one day?
the first live gig I actually went to was Motorhead back in about
Wow.
1983, I think it was, 84. And I was already into music. I've been watching it, but I suddenly saw them in a small venue in Bristol in the west of England, and where you could literally stand 2 or 3 feet from them and look up, and it was just amazing. And I was so scared I was going to lose my hearing. I kept one finger in my ear halfway through the whole gig. I thought, this is so loud. I've never been to a gig before. I could be deaf after this. So I'm at Motorhead kind of doing this, trying to save my hearing. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was Motorhead. And then a week later, I saw a punk band called Stiff Little Fingers, who I thought were brilliant, an Irish punk band, and really, really cool band.
That's
And
awesome.
so those two, I've always followed the heavy rock and the punk. I know the punks and rockers often fought, but for me, though, I followed both,
Yeah,
both tracks. Yeah, so
that's
great,
awesome.
great fun.
So in
How
my
about
third
yourself?
What's
What was
that?
your first band you saw?
The first real formative one, and I don't know why my parents let me go to it. I saw Motley Crue's Theater of Pain, and
Oh,
we
really?
air guitared and went crazy. And Nikki Sixx was he was tripping the sound guy. Bottle rockets were flying. Gals were throwing their clothes off, and we're up there like, wow, this is great. But it was a really good show. But I remember in my 20s, I had a ponytail, long hair, and I was working in corporate America. And some guy was like, look, I got tickets to see Kiss. They were on their reuniting tour. Do you want to go? And I was like, sure. So we go, and he's buying bottles of booze, and we're going out. We're getting ready to get ready for it. And he's like, here, I'm just going to give these to you just in case. And he gave me headphones. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. So about an hour into the show, he drags me down to the floor, and we get right there. And Gene Simmons, blood, wings come out, and I had to put him in because it was so loud. So when you're talking about Motorhead, like it's real. Like there's a couple musicians out there. I can't remember who it is. Um, it'll come to me that have really hardcore tinnitus, and it just destroyed their eardrums
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So, but those were fun times, man. When you're talking about Motorhead in the '80s, that was at the height of their powers. I mean, that had to
Yeah.
be thrilling, you
No,
know.
it's great. I saw Motorhead, Ozzy Osbourne,
Wow,
and all of them at the same venue in Bristol. That it's quite a small capacity venue, but they all did that. Iron Maiden, Motorhead, all those up and coming bands who became absolute legends. It was a great time, yeah. And
that's great.
yeah,
So let me ask you this: if you could meet anybody on the planet right now, whether it's in your field or otherwise, and you could just have a lunch and talk to them, who fascinates you? Who would you love to talk to?
uh, oh, I like Paul McCartney and David Gilmour. Those two
Round table.
fascinate me. Yeah. And do you know what happened a few months ago? My son is very into music. He was trying to get some work experience in a local studio, and they called him up and said, uh, we've cancelled your slot, but if you come and make tea, you can hang out. We've got David Gilmour and Paul McCartney coming in. I said, you got to go. And he said, no, no, I can't be bothered. I said, well, I'll go. I'm going to make tea for them. Sure, I'd want to be with them. So unfortunately, it didn't come off, but I thought that's my two music legends. And because I think they've both been through so much and they're so creative and they've both been through so many different experiences. And on the outside, we see them as success, but they've both must have had their personal challenges as well. And I'm interested in, yeah, I like them as the musicians and songs, but how do they deal with it? What do they do? How do they overcome that? How do they deal with being away from families? How do they cope with all that? What was it really like?
Yeah,
That's what I'd like to have that kind of chat, to hear those little backroom stories and that kind of thing. Those two people come to mind as people I'd
yeah.
love to just have a conversation with.
For sure. So, in your work, you got to get into the murkiness of the human mind. How do you
Sure.
protect yourself? How do you do this job at a high level every day? Take care of your soul and help your clients. What is that energy every day for you?
Uh, what I'd learned to do, because when I first started this, I didn't do it properly, and I would take on everybody's problems, and it would really stress me out, and I would get exhausted. Nowadays, what I do, I often teach this to my students as well. I say that when I'm with a client, I am so zoned in with them. I literally I go into their world. I want to think what they're thinking. I want to feel what they're feeling so I can understand it, but not taking it on board. What I do is it's almost like and this may sound a bit hippie-ish or energetic, but all I do is think a feeling of love from me flowing to them so that nothing's coming my way. It's all going that way. And I'm trying to see beyond their problems. If I can see beyond their fears and see beyond their issues, then maybe I can help them see beyond it too. So it's a very giving, 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 and I'm focused, and it's quite tiring at times when I do it, but also uplifting. But I just see this person as the being that they are behind all their stuff. And ever since I've been doing that, I can come away from a session and feel absolutely fine and feel great. I may feel a bit tired later, but I don't take anything on because I'm just doing the best I can, and I'm just giving them love and support and kindness from my heart, should we say, whilst my head is trying to help them solve their problem. And ever since I did that, I felt absolutely fine with it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you walked into a room and there was a film projector and you clicked play and your life that you've lived so far came up in a 60-second highlight reel, would that young
Mm.
version of you believe your life turned out this way?
Not in the slightest, no. He'd think we'd be on tour somewhere selling out stadiums, you know.
Right.
But at the same time, Um, he always had a fascination with mysticism and mystical things. He could never take somebody else's explanation. He always had to find out for himself. This 18-year-old me. He always wanted to just not accept normal answers. He wanted to know why and how. And he had a few strange experiences when he was younger, mystical things happening to him that it just brushed aside and didn't think much of it. But I think now, if I told him what I do now, he'd say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to do the music way, but actually this way is what I was probably designed for this time around." So I think a lot of what I've done would completely sit with him if I could help him put his guitar down for a minute and take his hair off and just kind of sit and have a normal conversation.
Yeah.
He'd go, "That's really cool. Yeah, now I get that." So, yeah, interesting question though, Chris.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So in that 60-second highlight reel, what are you ultimately the happiest about, the proudest of?
Uh, Gosh, there's so many things flash through my mind. Actually, three topics went straight to my mind then. One is my children. Got three children, so being able to just be a good dad for them. I'm not always a good dad because when I was younger, they were younger, I was stressed like many parents, but I did my best to make up for the times when I wasn't so good. So that's been great. All the clients I've been able to help, every single one of those moments has been quite emotional in a way when I see them go from someone who's lost to someone who's found themselves, someone who couldn't to say, I can. And that little moment when they change, and it's a really, because the way I work, it's a very pivotal thing. It's not a talky thing necessarily. It's an emotional shift happens. And I think I've seen that so many times. Every one of those comes together as like one pivotal thing. And the third thing that popped in mind was, uh, I went through a really, really tough phase myself where a lot of stuff caught up with me. And I pulled myself out of that, shall we say. And I think um, if there's a big achievement I've done, it's the fact that I managed to do that because it would have been very easy to lose it and get lost. So yeah, those three things come to mind. Yeah, my family situation, clients, and just my own personal ability to say, come on, just keep going,
Yeah,
come on, you can do it. And that, um, yeah, one thing, something I say to my children and to every client is, look, there's always a way. There's always a way. If it's
yeah,
difficult, challenging, there's always a way. Just find that way.
for
So,
sure. So,
yeah.
Andrew, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone in your world, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, I'm somebody just bumbling along, doing my best. You know, I may look certain things on the outside, but inside, yeah, I try and do my best. And I always think I could probably do a bit more than what I have. I think a lot of people, a lot of us, when we doing those things, we have those perceptions. But I think just recently I've started to realize that yeah, maybe I've done all right. Maybe I've done some good things. I turned to Alison, my partner. She says, "Are you joking? Are you serious? Can you not see?" And I say, "Oh yeah, maybe." So, but I'm just, I'm still trying to do things and feel like I'm being useful to somebody. So, yeah, I think a lot of people the thing they see of me and how I see myself, there's probably a bit just discrepancy, but they're closer nowadays. But yeah, good
Right on.
question. Yeah.
So, let me ask you this. If you can get into a time machine and go back in time and see one concert, who is it and where are you going?
Ooh, gosh, one of them. I was going to say Queen Freddie Mercury, but then I went to the Doors. I wish I'd seen Jim Morrison live. Yeah,
Yeah, that would be
that would be
cool.
cool. Jim Morrison with Iggy Pop stoned out his head somewhere in the
Yeah,
audience jumping around. That would have been good. So,
that would be good, man.
yeah, yeah, Jim
Great,
Morrison.
great
Yeah.
answer. So, if anybody is ready for the Andrew Parr method, if they have questions, they want to reach out, any of the good business, where do they go?
The simple way is I have a book. It's a Penguin Life book, The Real You, which will give you a lot of information about yourself. For one-to-one work with myself, andrewparr.org. You can just reach out and we can have a chat and see what help people want. But also train people in the methods. I use myself, and that's andrewparracademy.org. And I train people to help others and build a career out of that if they're interested in it. So that either of those ways will get in touch with me.
Okay, I will put all these links in the show notes. What a wonderful interview! What a wonderful story! Thank you so much for opening up. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. I really, really appreciate your questions. It was really lovely to have someone really think about it and ask such meaningful questions, and that made it a really magical thing for me. So
Y-
thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely been a pleasure. And I will.